Hello Divination and welcome. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to add a slide-in product info to your Divi's product page. This is the final result we're aiming to achieve. So without wasting a lot of time, let's dive in and let's get started. All right, so the very first thing we're going to do here is to add our product. So I'm going to come over here to products. Now, of course, make sure you have WooCommerce installed because it's important that you have WooCommerce. Otherwise, this won't work. So over here on products, I'm going to click on all products so you can see what products we have here so far. I know I have these sunglasses, I have this soap, I have quite a few images that I've added here. So what you want to do is to create a brand new product, and to do that, it's easy. Just click on add new, and you want to give your product a name and a description. So I'm just going to call this, I'm just going to paste some dummy text in here. And I'm also going to add a product name just using lorem ipsum. And then what you also want to do here is you want to make sure you have a category, and to add a category, you just click here on add new category and then just do that. But I'm just going to click on uncategorized. Next, I'm going to add my price, and let's say this is 49. And then we also need to set our product image. Now here on the product image, you can add an image with a transparent background. It doesn't really matter. You can just choose whatever image that you have in your media library. So in my example here, I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to click on set product image. Now, if you want something with a transparent background, what you would do is you can click on remove, and then you can set product image. And a product with a transparent background, let's try this one here and see what it looks like. So it would look like that with those checkered background. So that's how it would look like. But as I mentioned, for now, we're just going to use an image, which is just a normal image. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, set my image. So with that said, I'm going to hit publish. And then the next step here is to head over to our right sidebar. But in fact, you know what, before we do that, if I come over here to use the Divi builder, this will give us even more options for our page. Now, if I click here now on this drop down, you can see I can set this to full width, and that's exactly what we need to do here. We need a full width so that our design pretty much covers everything on our page. All right, so now that we have this, the next step now is to build this from the front end. So I'm going to click on build on the front end. So this now is going to take us into our builder where we can go in and really customize this the way we want. So now that we have all our information that we need, as you can see, we have various elements here which have been pulled in by Divi, and we can go in and really customize this to the way we want. Now let's start by modifying our section settings. So I'm going to come over here, click on my section settings, background, and then I'm going to add my background color. And by the way, if you want to use the exact same color as I'm using throughout this tutorial, I will leave a link to the post in the show notes below. All right, so now that I've added that, the next step is to add my minimum height. And you know what? Let me just snap this over to the left. Okay, like that. All right, so over here on design, we're going to go to sizing. So here on the minimum height, we want to set this to 100 VH. And this means that this pretty much covers the whole screen. And then we also want to go into spacing and add 0 to the top and bottom padding. So I'm going to come over here to spacing and 0 to the bottom as well. Or you can just activate this change so the same value can be added both to the top and the bottom. All right, so now that we have this, the next step now is to come over here to advanced visibility, and we want to make sure horizontal overflow is set to hidden, and we want this on the vertical as well, and then save. Next, we need to go into our row settings. So I'm going to click here on this gear icon to go into my row settings, and then we're going to go into design. Right, so we want to go to sizing, activate use custom gutter width, and set this to 1. And for our width, we want to make sure it's set to 100%, and maximum width also needs to be 100%. So I'm going to come over here and set it to 100%. Next, we're going to come over here to spacing and make sure you have 0 to the padding, both to the top and the bottom as well. And then we need to save. Right, so the next stage is to take a look here at our second column, my row settings. Go into column 2 and add my background color here, and the color is going to be white. And then next, I am going to add some padding. So I'm going to come over here to design, spacing, and I'm going to add 10 VW both to the top and the bottom. And I also need to add some padding to the left and the right. And that's a bit too much. Let's bring it down to about 8 VW. So now you can see here that our content has enough breathing space, and that looks really, really nice. All right, so now that we have that all added, let's head over to our filter. So I'm going to come over here to filters. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to make sure my brightness is set to 100 and my invert is set to 0 and my sepia is set to 0. And this is the normal state. So this is what we need when everything is normal. Now let's add a hover state. So on the hover state, we are going to come over here to our brightness, and I'm going to click here on this arrow pointing up and click on the hover tab and set this to 49%. I'm going to switch it back over here, and then I want to move on to invert and also add my hover state. So I'm going to click on this arrow again, hover, set this to 100%. And then I'm also going to go to my sepia tone, and on the hover, I am also going to add 100%. So this is only going to happen on the hover state. So you can see here, that looks really cool. So the next step now is to come over here to advanced position, and the position here is going to be absolute. So I'm going to click here on this drop down, choose absolute, and we want this to be on the bottom right, and then save. I'm going to save this one more time. And now let's go into our title. So I'm going to click here on this gear icon, and then we're going to go into design. So here on our title text, we're just making sure that I've selected the right one. And for my title text, I'm going to set this to Playfair Display. And here it is. I'm going to select it. So our text color here is going to be black. And while I'm here, I might as well set my size. And this is going to be 3VW. And let's save. Next, I'm going to come to the Woo price. So I'm going to click on the gear icon here, design, price texts. And I'm going to change my font here to Poppins. And I know I've used this before. So here it is. The price text color. I'm going to come over here and paste my value. And as I mentioned before, if you want to use the exact same values as I'm using throughout this tutorial, I will leave a link to the post in the show notes below. All right. So now that I've added my color, I'm going to add my size for my price text. And this is going to be 1.4 VW. And then next, I'm going to come over here to spacing, and I am going to add a top margin of 2 VW. And on the bottom, let's make it 3. Yeah, I think that looks much better. So we're going to set our bottom margin at 3 VW. All right, so now that we have that all set, we also need to go into the Woo description. Now, as you can see here, I don't have my description text, so I'm just going to skip that. But if you have your description, this is where you can go in and also customize your description text. So I'm going to save this for now, and then I'm going to go to my add to cart and customize this. So I'm going to start off with the fields background color. So I'm going to come over here, click on design fields, and I'm going to start with my fields background color. Now for this, I'm going to do something a bit different. I'm going to add a transparent color here. So I'm going to just drag this down a little bit and paste my color between the brackets like that. And my fields text color, it's going to be black. There we go. And my font is going to be Poppins. So making sure I select the right font. There we go. And then next, I also need to set my fields text size. And over here, I'm going to set this to 0.9 VW. Right, so moving on, the next step here is to go to our borders, and I'm going to add the border on the bottom. So I'm going to select that, and then I'm going to set my size here, and then I'm going to add my color. Now over here, you can see that our border looks a bit funny there because it has rounded corners. Make sure that you have 0 to all the sides selected, and now you have a solid line there on the bottom. So that's looking good so far. The next step now is to work on our button, and the quickest way to go to your button settings is to go to this little icon here. I'm going to set my styles for button, and then let's start with our button text size. So I'm just going to come over here, set this to 0.9 VW, and then my color here, my button text color is going to be white. So I'm going to click over here, set my color. And then I'm going to add my background. So for this, I'm going to do something a bit different. I'm going to go with a gradient. So I'm going to click here on this plus button and add my first color for my gradient. So I'm going to paste it like that. And then I'm going to add my second color and I'm going to paste it like that. So making sure that your gradient type is set to linear. The next step now is to set our angle. Now by default, it's set at 180 degrees. So I want this at 153. And then the button border width, we are going to make sure this is set to 0. There we go. Now let's move on to our button border radius, and we want this at 1 pixel. And then we're also going to set our button font, and this is also going to be Poppins. Now the reason why we're using Poppins throughout here is because we want to make sure we have consistency on our page design. All right, so now that we have that all set, now it's time to make the button look even much better by adding a bit of padding. So let's add our button padding. So I'm just going to scroll down a little bit here, and there we go. I'm going to set this to 1 VW, and I'm going to apply this to the bottom as well. And then for the left and right, we are going to set this to 3 VW. There we go. So that's looking much better. Now for the spacing, we are also going to add a bottom margin of 2 VW. So I'm going to come all the way down here to spacing and add my 2 VW. So now we have a little bit of space between our button here and our category. All right, so let's save this and then let's work on our meta text. So I'm going to click here on this gear icon, and for the font, we're going to come over here to design text, and let's change this to Poppins as well because that looks really out of place. And for our font weight, we're going to set this to light, and then let's add our size, and this time this is going to be 0.8 VW. And now let's add our text color. So I'm going to come over here and add my color. So next we need to have a zoom effect to this. So I'm going to save this and I'm going to show you how to add our code. So I'm going to click here on this plus button, and what we need here is our code module. So I'm going to select that and I'm going to paste this code in the module here. So this is what's going to give us our zoom effect. Okay. And as I mentioned before, if you want to use the exact same coding, I will add it to the blog post, which I'll link to in the show notes below. All right, so now that we have this all set, let's save this. And this time, let's go to our image module by clicking here on this gear icon. All right, so here straight away, the main thing is the animation. So click on design animation, and we are going to choose our animation style. So we want the slide. And with slide selected, we are going to choose our direction, and we want our direction to be up. And we also need a starting opacity of 50%, and the curve, we want it at ease. All right, so let's save that. And then we also need to go into our column 1 settings. So I'm going to click here on this gear icon, go into our first column and click on design, animation. And the animation style is also going to be slide. And then what we're going to do is let's choose the direction, and the direction here is going to be left. Animation delay 950. Now the intensity here is going to be down to 25%. Starting opacity is going to be 100%. And then animation speed curve, ease in, out is perfect. So we're going to leave that as it is. Now let's save this. Oh, in fact, you know what? We need to go to column 2 and apply similar settings. So I'm going to go back over here, go to column 2, design, animation, slide. And what we're going to do here is also set our animation direction to left. And for animation duration, we're going to set this to 1200. Then next, we're also going to set our animation delay to 800. Now let's work on the opacity. So here on the starting opacity, we're going to set this to 100, and ease in, ease out is fine. So now we've done a lot of work to customize this layout. So what you can do is you can save this as a template. So to do that, you want to click over here to expand settings, and then you can just click here on this little arrow pointing down. And this is where you can save this layout, give it a name, and you can also add it to a category. Now, once you've done that, you can save it to the library. Now, once it's in the library, here's what you can do. In fact, you know what? Let me save this. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to our dashboard so I can show you how to import this layout that I've just saved. So what you want to do is to come all the way down here to Divi, click on Theme Builder, and then click on Portability, click on Import. And then that exported file, you just want to drag it over here, import Divi Theme Builder templates. Okay, so now you can see it's already imported, and this is targeting all products, and that is really cool. So I'm going to save changes here, and then what we're going to do is we're going to come all the way down here to our products, and we are going to take a look at what we've just been working on. So I'm going to click here on View, and we're going to open this in a new tab. And now you can see that this is our design. It has a hover effect, and pretty much it has all the animations that we need. So there you have it. Thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and do follow us on our social media platforms. By doing so, you'll be notified every time we release new tutorials. Until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.